In collaboration with AB Capital Securities Inc., Global Strategy Real Estate presents to you the weekly stock market wrap-up, posting every Friday of every week.
では定刻になりましたので、始めます。皆さん、こんにちは。今週も始まりました、AB キャピタルとのですね、生ライブ、対談、プラス今週のですね、マーケットの、ウィークリーラップアップですね、の2部構成でやっていきたいと思います。で、今日初めて参加されている方もいますので、少しですね、このライブの構成を話しておきますと、最初の前半部分でですね、毎週皆様から、ストックマスターズの会員様から質問を募ってますので、その質問もですね、今日もらっている部分あるので、それを実際に AB キャピタルの現地のプロアナリストに聞いていくという Q&A のコーナーが前半部分ですね。で、後半が、現地のプロアナリストの方からですね、今週どういったマーケットだったか、そして今どういった業界、銘柄がおすすめであり、旬な銘柄なのかというところを説明していただきます。で、後半の部分だけ英語でのやり取りになってしまいますので、前半もですね、英語のやり取りはあるんですけど、Q&A に関しては私たちが日本語で解説します。で、後半はすべて英語のやり取りになってしまいますので、もし少し英語が厳しいという方は、後日このスクリプトもつけて配信もしますので、前半の部分はですね、ぜひ日本語の解説もついてますので、最後まで見ていただけたらと思いますけれども、そういった形でやっていきます。で、日本側のフィリピンアセットコンサルティングから私、松下と家村が参加しています。で、私たちのですね、フィリピン側のアシスタントとしてステファニーが入ってもらってます。で、AB キャピタルの現地アナリストとしてランスさん、それからレクスターさんに来てもらってます。そういった形で早速ですね、今週のですね、Q&A の方から始めていきたいと思います。で、今週もらっている質問がですね、2つありまして、1つ目が、バリュエーションテーブルの選定の仕方ということで、AB キャピタルのサイトの方であったり、ストックマスターズのデイリーレポートを見ている方は、時々ですね、割安銘柄のとおすすめ銘柄のですね、パフォーマンス表を出してるんですけど、なんていうんですかね、その銘柄の選定の仕方がどうなっているのかと、その中で今、どんな銘柄が特におすすめなのか、これを1つ目聞いていきます。2つ目がですね、IPO についてですね、皆さん、IPO、昨日締め切りですかね、一応、今年2021年の初の IPO があったんですけれども、昨日締め切りで、今月ですね、上場するんですけど、その後ですね、今年他に、IPO の案件がもう決まっているものありますかという質問ですね。この2点聞いていきたいと思いますので、早速、家村さん、では、よろしくお願いします。
ですね、最初の質問をちょっとね、補足しますと、皆さん、AB キャピタルの講座を開いていただいている方がほとんどだと思うんですけど、ですね、これ AB キャピタルのですね、アカウントの中に、調査資料っていうですね、画面っていうか、あるんですけども、そこでですね、デイリーレポートと、あと、週に何回かですね、いろんなレポートを送ってくるんですけども、一つですね、僕一番これが、僕個人的にはこれ一番重要だなと思っていつも見てるんですけども、バリエーションテーブルっていうのがあって、何かっていうと、今日のでね、出演していただいているレクスターさんとランスさんが、要するにこの会社の、本来的な価値、本来的な株価っていくらかって算出してるんですね。それは、なんていうんですかね、ディスカウントキャッシュフローとかですね、PER とか PBR とか、過去のもの比べて、いろんな様々な手法を入れて、本来いくらだというターゲットプライスというのを出してまして、そのターゲットプライスに対して今の株価が高いのか安いのか、でこれすごくですね、割安銘柄見つけるときすごく重要な資料なんで、皆さんもぜひですね、これね、毎週来ますから、月曜日か火曜日に来るんですよ、大体。これですね、毎週必ずチェックしていただいたらいいと思います。で、今日はちょっとそれについてね、聞いてみたいと思います。最初のクエスチョンは。はい。
以上ですかね、とりあえず。
はい、そうですね。
そうですね。一応今週の、質問は以上になりますので、こういった形で また後日スクリプトもつきますけど、かなり今回もですね、非常にいい情報をもらえたので、皆さんぜひこの情報をもとに、長期的に見れば基本的には上がっていくような銘柄も多いと思いますので、ぜひ自分の投資活動に生かしていただければなと思います。それでは、以上をもちまして、一応 Q&A は、ここで以上になります。で、後半、ウィークリーラップアップですね、に早速移っていきたいと思います。では、Stephanie, let's get started weekly wrap up since now. Yep.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly stock market wrap up with AB Capital Securities Inc. Today we have Mr. Lance to give us this week's stock market report.
Hey everyone, I'm Lance and welcome to this week's market wrap. Okay, so first off for the US markets, what moved the major averages last week was still concerns over surging yields. Again, that's especially bad for the tech issues given that a lot of high-tech growth companies are relying on heavy borrowing for their growth. Next, for the Philippines, some economic news. Philippines IHS manufacturing expands in February. So that's second straight month of manufacturing expansion, and that's good since that implies demand recovery and that businesses have a positive outlook for business conditions here in the Philippines. Next, bank lending shrinks the most in 14 years, down 2.4% in January. Inflation to taper off by the second half, according to the BSP. So the Philippine Central Bank is expecting inflation to breach the 4% level for the first half of this year, and they expect it to return to around 2 to 4% by the second half of the year. Feb inflation at 4.7%, so that's the second straight month where it breached the upper end of the BSP's target 2 to 4% band. And finally, BIR projecting weak POGO revenues for this year. And some corporate news, Dito may start to offer home broadband services in 2022. RLC is looking to list its REIT for this year. Monday, Nielsen files for historic IPO. So as mentioned, that's the biggest IPO for the Philippines. And AR is on trading suspension after the PSE found out that AR has higher paid for outstanding shares than the listed shares, which is not allowed according to the PSE, as outstanding shares should equal the number of listed shares. And finally, out of the 19 index issues that released full year 2020 results, 11 were behind consensus earnings estimate, 5 were ahead, and 3 were in line. So on a week-on-week basis, the index is up 86 points, mainly on optimism after the country have started with its vaccine rollout last March 1. However, on a week-on-week basis, net foreign selling continued to persist. It accumulated to 2.5 billion pesos. So that's the third straight week of net foreign selling. And on a year-to-date basis, net outflows accumulated to 23 billion pesos. And our outlook for this one is still the same. We continue to expect net foreign selling to persist most of the days, especially now that we're seeing a spike in COVID cases here in the Philippines. So for the past 5 days, it averaged around 3,000 cases per day. The last time that happened was around September of 2020. And regional markets performance, the Philippine stock market is still among the worst performing markets in the region. We still have a very high number of active cases. And as I've mentioned, we're seeing spike in COVID cases right now. And again, that's especially bad for the Philippines since the Philippine economy is among the hardest hit economies by the pandemic last year. So on a valuation standpoint, so the average P of the exchanges here are 17.4 times. So for 2021, the Philippine stock market is trading at 18.4 times PE. So that's already at a premium versus the regional average. And also for the 5-year historical average PE of the Philippine stock market, it's around 18 times. So again, at 18.4 times, we're already trading at a slight premium. And for our market outlook, we expect the index to trade right now from 6,700 to 6,900, given that optimism on the vaccine rollout is dying down and negative sentiment is much more prevalent, given, again, the spike in cases and also the spike in inflation as well. So some key events, trade balance will be on March 12. DDMP offer period from March 10 to March 16, and earnings releases for AC, SMC, and Converge will be on March 11. And again, for stock picks, it's still the same. We again just updated the figures. For the dividend play, we suggest you go for Telglobe and Meralco. So these companies have relatively stable earnings, and they give high dividend payout as well. And for the value play, these are the companies that are trading below book. These companies have price to book of less than 1. So for value plays, we like Metro Bank, Security Bank, GT Cap, MPI, LTG, and TMC. And to aid you with your trading, we've included entry and exit points as well. R1 is resistance, S1 is support 1, R2 is resistance 2, and S2 is support 2. And finally, here's the list of the companies still trading at a bargain. So the companies in the negative territory are the companies trading at a discount or at a bargain versus their 10-year average PE. And the companies in the positive territory are the companies trading at a premium versus their 10-year average PE. And that's it for this week's market wrap.
Thank you, Ran-san. I have several questions. Okay, first three, hang on a second. First three, yeah, we asked the Monday Nishin IPO, which is the biggest IPO in the history. The valuation and pricing point of view, as Lex Tyson said, PER, if the price fixed 1740, the PER is 31 times. So URC is competitor 27. So what is your opinion about the pricing of Monday Nishin?
I think I believe the 1750 is just an indicative price. It will at 1750, so that would be a little premium to URC and even the regional average. The regional average is actually 21 times.
21.
So
21
yes.
Is a whole retail sector. 21.
Yes, in the region. So similar type of business. But if the company can justify that, if they can justify that they can grow faster than its nearest comparators, so I think that would justify the 31 times PE. But I'm quite confident that they would eventually lower the price to make it more attractive for investors, especially that they're listing their shares at a significant offering. It's more than $1 billion in an IPO, so that's actually quite significant.
So from the long-term point of view, this stock, the one to invest, you think?
Well, I think maybe at a given price, it would be a good stock to pick up. But definitely this won't be a high flyer stock. So we won't see this price go ceiling on the first day. So we won't see a similar move to the likes of Merrimart. Definitely, definitely not.
Definitely not, right? Yeah, Merrimart is more small cap, but that's what this one is a big cap.
Yes.
Movement is more limited.
Yes. Since the offer size of Merrimart was just a little over $1 billion pesos. So
this one is over 60 billion, so a bit much bigger.
Yeah, a lot bigger. So it's actually quite heavy. Even bigger than Converge. So
yes.
I guess just to give you an idea also of what could possibly be the movement on the first few trading days of Converge.
I see. Okay, thank you. Next question. You pick stock picks every week, and dividend play and value play. For example, the page 9, you selected MBT, SECB, GT Cap, MPI, LTG, DMC, right? But the continuing discussion of the Q&A session, I have a very big interest. Actually, there are stocks which have bigger upside potentiality. Actually, something like East West, PNB, Eagle, Cebu. But I want to hear the selection criteria for you in the stock picks. So, for example, okay, you pick up MBT, Metro Bank, but you don't pick up East West and PNB, right? In the banking sector. So yes. Your criteria is more kind of a Sharpe ratio. You considering the risk factor, then you select in the stock pick. I want to know how there are the companies, stocks which have bigger upside percentage, right? But you don't pick up, you don't select. So I want to know, how do you select stock picks?
Yes. That's actually that's actually a good observation. So it wasn't really a very straightforward that whatever we see that has highest upside potential, that's the one we'll get. So we actually considered also the stability of the company.
Stability. Okay.
Yes. So of course we had to consider also whether they have the financial capability to survive such a crisis. Whether
survivability, stability and survivability.
Yes, exactly. So so I guess in a worst case scenario, you would stick to companies. I mean, let's say for example for the banks, I believe you'd rather stick to companies like BDO, BPI, or Metro Bank rather than the likes of, for example, PNB and East West, which has a higher risk of potential. Let's say potential bankruptcy. So I think that's one thing that we considered in selecting those companies. So it's not just looking at the upside potential, but also the track record of the company, the management behind it, the asset base of the company, whether the companies are over leveraged or under leverage, the resiliency also. We were actually looking at sectors that can more of a defensive stance in terms of COVID. So of course we all know the direct impact to certain sectors. So even if let's say for example even if Cebu Air or SSI has a larger upside potential, but the risk factor is actually quite actually quite high. So it's more of a this is more of a I would say this one's more of a defensive stance, especially in this trading environment.
I see. Thank you. I understand. Well, I have one question about BDO. BDO is a kind of in the page 11. BDO is kind of high biggest value stocks from the point of the standard deviation last 10 years. So, but you don't pick up BDO, and also BDO, the size of the business, BDO is the biggest bank in the Philippines. So why you don't pick up BDO?
Yeah, well, it's not that we didn't pick BDO, but in terms of risk to reward ratio, we think that the other banks have a more higher potential in terms of a risk to reward. They offer a better proposition compared to BDO. And I guess in terms of BDO, I wouldn't say that we don't like BDO, but I think it's also a good alternative. Since of course, given also that the stability of the bank, they're the largest bank in the country. But we believe that in terms of risk to reward ratio, in terms of the upside potential, we think that the other banks are can offer a better proposition. And among selecting also the companies, we didn't want to be too concentrated on the banking sector. So we had to diversify also some of the selection into other sectors. So actually, if it would have been easier for us to just select all the banks. Extreme example, we would have picked all the banks, but in order to have a more diverse selection.
Diversification, diversify.
Yes,
I see.
Yes, so that's essentially how we arrived at the list.
So does BDO have something big risk?
Well, right now, what's the biggest concern? But it's not. I wouldn't say it's something to be worried about. But they have some exposure also to Dennis Uy. They have some exposure to
Dennis Uy. Yeah.
Yes. So of course you're very familiar also with the recent activity of Dennis Uy. So with Dito Telecommunity, with Odena. So actually, most of the outstanding debt of the Dennis Uy is actually absorbed by BDO as well. So I think that's an added risk also to BDO. So if ever one of the companies of Dennis Uy defaults, I would say BDO would be the most heavily impacted.
Oh, I see. Okay, BDO is the kind of a biggest creditor to the Dito and Dennis Uy.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
So of course, with the stability also, it's most of the businesses right now of Dennis Uy are more on the speculative stage. And most of the companies are also highly leveraged. So I think there's also an added concern of Dennis Uy to pay off its debts once it matures in the near future.
I see. I understand. Thank you. Thank you. That's all of my questions, Stephanie.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yumura-san, Matsushita-san, Sir Lance, and Sir Lexter for joining us today. And that's it for our weekly stock market wrap-up with AB Capital Securities Inc. Thank you, and see you again next week.